The war in Ukraine is characterized by the fact that both Russia and Ukraine possess some of the most advanced weapon systems ever developed. The battlefield is dominated by cutting-edge drones, even if their appearance might not suggest it. Both sides employ sophisticated air defense networks and precision-guided munitions, which represent decades of military innovation from the Soviet Union and NATO. However, when it comes to actual battlefield effectiveness, one of the most reliable tools for either side is surprisingly simple and dates back to World War II: decoys, or dummy weapons designed to mislead enemy forces. Inflatable decoys are playing an increasingly significant role in Ukraine's defense strategy, and as you will see, they could cost Russia millions of dollars in wasted ammunition every month. These decoys used by the Ukrainians are based on such a straightforward concept that even a general from before World War II would immediately recognize it. Yet, in 2025, they are proving just as effective as all the artificial intelligence and autonomous systems Russia has deployed against Ukraine. To provide some historical context, in 1994, during Operation Fortitude, the Allies used inflatable tanks and dummy aircraft to deceive Nazi Germany, causing the Germans to misallocate their forces before the D-Day invasion. This so-called Ghost Army operated across more than 20 battlefields in World War II, artificially inflating Allied numbers to force German commanders to overthink their strategies. At that time, the decoys succeeded because they only needed to fool ground observers and reconnaissance aircraft from a relative distance. Given the advancement of drone technology, which allows targets to be identified more easily from the air, one might assume that decoys would have become obsolete. More visibility should make it easier to see through them, right? However, modern drones have actually enhanced the effectiveness of decoys rather than diminishing it. This is where Ukraine's ingenuity shines. The individual responsible for Ukraine's current arsenal of inflatable deceptions is Viktor Talling. His career did not begin in the defense sector. Instead, he specialized in inflatable sports equipment, hot air balloons, and even children's bouncy castles. Despite this unconventional background, his skills translated perfectly to creating convincing replicas of late Soviet-era military equipment. These decoys have not only been utilized by Ukrainian forces, but also by the British and US militaries during training and operational planning. So, why are these decoys so important? First, it is necessary to address a critical issue: availability. Although Ukraine still has a sizable stockpile of Soviet-era weaponry from before the Soviet Union's collapse, its tanks are gradually being depleted due to the ongoing war effort. While Ukrainian forces would naturally prefer to field real tanks capable of offensive operations and firing on incoming troops, the current battlefield conditions also allow for another viable option: using decoys as targets. Because drone warfare is so pervasive, tanks have become especially prominent targets for drone swarms. In the absence of the ability to replace lost tanks with new ones from factories, Ukraine can deploy dummy tanks to lure enemy drones into launching misguided attacks. These attacks reveal the drones' locations and force the enemy to commit logistics and personnel to support these strikes. The economic advantage of this tactic is significant. Although precise data on the cost of each decoy is unavailable, most estimates place the price at roughly $1,000, which is a fraction of the cost of real military hardware. For comparison, a real 1 Abrams tank costs between $9 million and $13 for modern export versions. Similarly, an M270 multiple launch rocket system, or the well-known high mobility artillery rocket system, HIMARS, costs several million dollars per launcher. Thus, deploying inflatable decoys enables Ukraine to conserve valuable resources while inflicting substantial financial and operational costs on Russian forces, making this simple yet clever strategy a vital component of Ukraine's defense. Ukraine employs inflatable decoys that replicate the appearance, size, and some sensory signatures of real tanks and armored vehicles with remarkable detail, utilizing advanced materials and engineering techniques that closely mimic the textures, shapes, and even the subtle contours of genuine military hardware. These decoys are strategically deployed across various terrains, including open fields, forested areas, and urban environments, to create the illusion of a larger, more formidable military presence than actually exists. By doing so, they force Russian forces to disperse their troops and resources across a wider area, complicating their operational planning and logistical support. This dispersion dilutes Russian operational effectiveness by stretching their supply lines thinner, increasing the vulnerability of their actual combat units, and forcing commanders to allocate precious reconnaissance assets to verify these false targets. As a result, Russian forces are compelled to divide their attention and firepower, which diminishes their ability to concentrate strength for decisive offensive actions. Combat footage and drone videos released by Russian sources show strikes on these decoys, which are often so convincing that even advanced targeting systems, including infrared and radar-guided munitions, are fooled into locking onto them. Analysts examining the damage patterns in these videos have noted suspiciously uniform outcomes, such as identical blast radii and impact dispersions, which raise doubts about the authenticity of the destroyed vehicles. Although Russian strategists eventually recognize some targets as fake after repeated engagements, the initial confusion generates critical advantages for Ukraine by spreading misinformation that inflates Russian perceptions of Ukrainian strength and capabilities, causing hesitation and tactical overcaution. This misinformation also serves as a psychological boost for Ukrainian troops, who gain confidence knowing their deception efforts are successfully undermining enemy morale and decision-making. Meanwhile, real Ukrainian units remain well camouflaged, often utilizing natural cover and sophisticated concealment techniques to blend seamlessly into the environment, maintaining high combat readiness to respond swiftly to any Russian advances. The decoys also introduce significant hesitation into Russian reconnaissance and attack plans, slowing their decision-making processes and disrupting the operational tempo that Russian forces seek to maintain. Ukrainian troops exploit these delays to reposition, reinforce defensive lines, or launch counterattacks under more favorable conditions. Furthermore, Ukrainian units frequently relocate decoys, simulating troop movements and changing battlefield dispositions, which further confuses Russian intelligence and forces repeated reconnaissance sorties, thereby increasing the costs and risks associated with gathering accurate battlefield information. These decoys are equipped with heat sources that mimic the infrared signatures of active engines, smoke generators that simulate exhaust plumes, and electronic components that emit false radar signals, effectively creating a multispectral illusion. This complexity significantly hampers Russian efforts to distinguish decoys from real assets using their electronic warfare and sensor suites. Typically, confirming the authenticity of a target requires close-range inspection or physical engagement, which Russian forces are reluctant to undertake due to the high risk posed by Ukrainian countermeasures, including anti-tank guided missiles and artillery. While Russia also employs similar decoy tactics, Western military analysts generally regard Russian decoy technology as less advanced and less convincing compared to Ukraine's continually refined models, which benefit from ongoing innovation driven by battlefield feedback and real-time adaptation. This technological and tactical edge in deception not only enhances Ukraine's defensive capabilities, but also contributes to a broader psychological warfare campaign, maintaining an advantage in both the physical and informational domains of the conflict. Ukraine's approach to deception in warfare surpasses its adversaries in detail, engineering, and dedication, showcasing ingenuity that defines its defense in a manner both innovative and deeply rooted in practical battlefield realities. This approach is not merely about creating illusions. It represents a comprehensive doctrine that integrates psychological warfare, technological adaptation, and tactical ingenuity to outmaneuver a numerically superior adversary. Ukraine out-innovates a larger military by blending traditional tactics with modern technology, crafting a multifaceted defense system specifically designed to exploit the unique vulnerabilities of Russian forces. The brilliance lies not only in the creation of decoys, ranging from simple wooden mock-ups to sophisticated electronic replicas, but also in a wider system of low-tech measures that strategically drain Russian resources and morale. These measures compel Russian troops to expend significant quantities of expensive munitions, personnel, and critical time on false targets, thereby diminishing their operational effectiveness and combat readiness over time. Decoys have proven to be effective tools, but they represent only one facet of Ukraine's comprehensive drone countermeasures. For example, Ukrainian troops use fishing nets, a deceptively simple yet highly effective tactic, to physically capture drones in flight. This method is particularly effective against fiber optic drones, which rely on cables for secure communication links, enabling them to evade conventional electronic jamming techniques. The nets tangle or sever these cables, instantly neutralizing the drones and preventing them from relaying intelligence or conducting attacks. Beyond capturing drones, Ukrainians have ingeniously repurposed their own drones for defense purposes, deploying first-person view, FPV, drones tasked with cutting enemy communication cables, mid-flight, and small drones, armed with mini shotguns, designed to shoot down hostile aerial vehicles. The utilization of basic small arms and machine guns remains a cost-effective and reliable method for drone defense, with the deployment of synchronized rifle arrays significantly increasing the chances of successfully hitting fast-moving targets. On the other side, Russia employs mobile anti-drone platforms equipped with multiple automatic weapons mounted on light chassis, demonstrating a pragmatic, though less technologically advanced, approach focused on brute force and mobility. Both combatants have upgraded tank armor to prevent drones from executing close-range strikes, highlighting the evolving nature of armored warfare under the persistent threat of aerial surveillance and attack. An unusual but noteworthy tactic employed by Russian forces involves covering bombers with old tires or painting tire patterns on them, aimed at disrupting drone targeting systems. These crude yet sometimes effective methods interfere with optical and infrared sensors, complicating enemy attempts to identify and lock onto high-value targets. This eclectic mix of sophisticated decoys and rudimentary physical countermeasures addresses different aspects of enemy reconnaissance and targeting. While decoys are designed to fool human operators during close attacks by mimicking real assets, physical barriers, and improvised countermeasures disrupt automated detection systems and sensor arrays. This layered and adaptive drone defense system exemplifies Ukraine's overarching military strategy, which emphasizes flexibility, resourcefulness, and the seamless integration of simple and advanced technologies to counterbalance its foes' numerical superiority. By continuously evolving these tactics, Ukraine not only conserves critical resources but also maintains a psychological edge, forcing Russian forces to remain cautious, expend effort, and second-guess their own intelligence, thereby shaping the battlefield dynamics in favor of Ukrainian defenders. This holistic approach to deception and drone defense underscores the ingenuity of Ukraine's armed forces and their determination to leverage every available advantage in the fight for sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the preservation of national identity under the harshest conditions. If unaddressed, uncertainty drains time and energy as forces try to distinguish decoys from real targets, avoiding wasted ammunition or drones on harmless objects. This uncertainty keeps commanders in constant vigilance, complicating decisions under combat pressure where every second and every resource counts. The challenge also lies in computing and AI. Visual guidance and machine learning systems rely heavily on assumptions about a target's appearance and thermal signature, often based on extensive training datasets that may not fully account for the evolving tactics on the battlefield. Lifelike decoys, such as inflatable tanks, aircraft, or missile launchers, are designed to mimic these signatures closely, triggering these systems as valid targets and causing unnecessary resource diversion, which can severely hamper operational effectiveness. Meanwhile, camouflage or tactics like painting tires on aircraft, covering tanks with netting, or altering heat signatures to confuse sensors can cause legitimate targets to be overlooked by machine vision systems, leading to missed engagement opportunities and enhanced vulnerability. Despite advances in AI, humans remain the final defense, relying on experience, intuition, and contextual judgment to make split-second decisions that machines cannot fully replicate. Low-tech countermeasures succeed mainly by consuming time, money, and resources, forcing both sides to escalate their efforts in a costly cycle of measure and countermeasure. This dynamic explains why effective counter-drone measures are often inexpensive and simple, relying on strategies that maximize disruption at minimal cost. Modern warfare economics have shifted dramatically. Precision drones or interceptors now cost millions of dollars each, while inflatable decoys or basic jamming devices cost a mere fraction, often just thousands. For swarms of drones costing between $1,000 and $10,000 each, deploying expensive high-tech solutions becomes impractical compared to cheap decoys, nets, or electronic warfare tactics. This economic asymmetry drives the development of microwave weapons that disable drones by disrupting their electronics, requiring only electricity and precise aiming to be effective. Yet, even these advanced systems face limitations, such as range, power consumption, and susceptibility to countermeasures, and remain years away from widespread deployment. In the meantime, Ukraine urgently needs affordable, easily deployable, and rapidly replaceable defenses against the growing drone threat. Inflatable decoys fit this need perfectly as lightweight, reliable, and quickly producible resources that can be fielded en masse. The economic logic of drone warfare works in reverse as well. Both Ukraine and Russia use drones offensively to drain each other's economies by attacking infrastructure and supply lines far behind front lines. Drones are cheaper and easier to manufacture than conventional arms, enabling strikes on military sites, energy grids, and logistics hubs that were previously unreachable without significant air power. Ukraine has gained a strategic advantage by deploying drones capable of striking deep into Russian territory, targeting munitions depots, logistics hubs, and energy infrastructure critical to sustaining the war effort. By late 2025, these strikes had reduced Russia's oil processing capacity by approximately 18%, a significant blow to a revenue source that historically provided up to 40% of government funds, thereby undermining Russia's ability to finance its military operations and maintain internal stability. Russia also suffers heavy human losses. A CSI's report estimates 1.2 million Russian casualties in Ukraine, including up to 325,000 troop deaths from February 2022 to December 2025, further straining its military capabilities and economic resources. These intertwined economic and human costs underscore the profound impact of drone warfare on modern conflicts, illustrating how relatively low-cost technologies can impose outsized strategic consequences by shifting the balance of power and forcing adversaries into costly, unsustainable cycles of escalation and attrition. The conflict has grown deadlier each year, reflecting its increasing complexity and the evolving nature of modern warfare. Russia faces severe manpower shortages that limit its operational capabilities, constraining large-scale offensives and prolonged engagements. Early 25 saw Russia fail to train and deploy enough soldiers to replace rising casualties, exposing structural weaknesses worsened by sanctions, war fatigue, and internal pressures. By January 2026, Russia imposed year-round conscription, tightened exit controls, and increased penalties for draft evasion, highlighting the dire state of its military human resources. This manpower crisis explains why casualty numbers stabilized despite intense fighting, and why 2025 gains were mostly small tactical advances rather than decisive victories. Russia's lack of personnel forces cautious tactics focused on conserving manpower rather than exploiting opportunities. If this continues, 2026 casualties may stabilize or decline, not due to peace, but because fewer soldiers are available. Meanwhile, intensifying drone warfare complicates the conflict. As drones become more advanced and autonomous, fewer human fighters are needed, shifting combat toward technology-driven clashes dominated by unmanned systems. Both sides deploy numerous drones along the roughly 800-mile front line, which is thinly manned as semi-autonomous systems engage in electronic warfare, reconnaissance, and precision strikes. Traditional hardware often supports or holds positions, while drones dominate reconnaissance and precision attacks that minimize human risk and maximize battlefield awareness. Ukraine's use of inexpensive thermal and electromagnetic decoys wastes Russian ammunition, overwhelms drone operators, and reduces operational efficiency, straining Russia's logistics and degrading combat effectiveness. Ukraine's advantage lies not in numbers, but in being smarter, faster, and more adaptable than a numerically superior foe weakened by inflexibility, lack of innovation, and internal turmoil. Russia's early advantages in equipment, manpower, and industry have eroded over 3.5 years due to Ukrainian innovation, sustained Western support, and Russia's internal crises. This evolving situation raises questions about the future of warfare as AI and autonomous weapons increasingly test Ukraine's battlefield lessons. Both sides develop AI-enabled targeting and drone swarms to overwhelm defenses, but rely heavily on countermeasures like decoys, electronic jamming, and cyber warfare, which effectively counter advanced systems. Over-reliance on cutting-edge technology without integrating simple, cost-effective tactics allows inexpensive countermeasures to neutralize sophisticated systems. Autonomous drone swarms programmed to detect thermal or electromagnetic signatures are routinely spoofed by decoys, causing wasted time and resources on false targets, while real units evade detection. Thus, costly advanced systems expend disproportionate effort on cheap decoys, leaving genuine targets safer and enabling continued resistance. Ukraine's success with low-tech creativity amid advanced weaponry shows that victory depends more on effective, economical, and swift resource deployment, blending innovation with battlefield wisdom to exploit enemy weaknesses. This interplay between high technology and simple ingenuity shapes this brutal conflict's outcome and offers insights into future military strategy, emphasizing adaptability, resourcefulness, and integrating technology with human judgment in modern combat. By the time Russia fully understands the situation, it's already too late. They have spent billions of rubles on ammunition targeting phantom threats, wasted countless hours of drone operators chasing false leads, and created strategic vulnerabilities in their defenses that they cannot adequately reinforce due to limited resources. This combination of a century-old weapon system with modern logistics and distributed manufacturing has become one of Russia's most critical strategic challenges. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in learning how Ukraine manages to sustain its drone production, be sure to check out this video. To stay informed about the Russia-Ukraine conflict and other global geopolitical developments, subscribe for daily updates. As the conflict continues to evolve, analysts worldwide are closely monitoring how these lessons in asymmetric warfare will influence future military doctrines. The Ukraine experience underscores a shift from traditional large-scale engagements to more dynamic, technology-assisted skirmishes where innovation, adaptability, and resourcefulness hold the key to success. Militaries around the globe are now re-evaluating their procurement strategies, investing not only in cutting-edge technology, but also in training personnel to think creatively under pressure. This balance between high-tech capabilities and low-tech ingenuity could very well define the next era of warfare, making flexibility and rapid adaptation essential for any force aiming to maintain the upper hand in increasingly complex battlefields.